conjured souls that won't turn back.
Welcome to the Brethren of the Morning Star. I am your host, Magister Cankerworm. I have made a conscious effort in these videos to avoid being overly topical. My hope is that anyone viewing them, whether 8 days or 8 years from now, can engage with them in a way that is not tied to a particular historical moment. My point in bringing this up is that while I will specifically be talking about politics, I hope to do so in a manner that extends beyond the specific political situation of spring 2025. My primary contention in this video is that diabolism is neither entirely of the right or the left in terms of political ramifications. Satanism, more generally, is best understood as a political third way or option, neither entirely of the left or right, fascist or socialist, authoritarian or anarchistic. In most things, diabolism seeks the golden mean and demands politics be examined with nuance rather than ideological loyalty. If we want to talk about diabolism and the political spectrum, it would be helpful to say from the start what we mean by terms like right and left. We do not merely imply conservative versus liberal, though this is what these labels are typically reduced to, at least in the American context. There are instances where the left wants to conserve previous political victories, just as there are times when the right can be futurist. The essence of the right is a belief in hierarchy, tradition, and order, while the essence of the left is egalitarianism, social freedom, and public safety. Satanists have always valued hierarchy, law, and order. As Anton LaVey wrote in a 1971 letter, discussing a revision of the introduction to the Satanic Bible, quote, "Less space should be devoted to the types of rituals we are doing, and more emphasis should be placed on what is happening now, how we have become a force to be reckoned with, our organizational maturity, the various levels of involvement, our magical influence in the world outside the church, our growing acceptance and legitimacy, our elitist principles, our seemingly paradoxical support of law and order, and our refutation of the drug scene. In short, a projection of enough awesomeness to thrill and scare the reader, and yet not allow him any avenue to which, as a red-blooded, law-abiding American, he could possibly object." End quote. For LaVey, Satan was not the enemy of the American ethos, but the natural embodiment and possibly catalyst of it. One of the fundamental infernal axioms is that while people may be treated equally before the law, they are objectively not equal as persons. We each possess different strengths, weaknesses, and capabilities. Some people are more worthy of respect, better trusted with responsibility, and generally contribute more rather than subtract from the public good. From a satanic perspective, it is right and natural that such people should be given greater positions of authority, prestige, and wealth. For the diabolist, efforts to establish equity from the top down are met with skepticism, if not outright derision. With regard to law and order, Satanists understand that it is near impossible to assemble the materials required for the necessities of life, let alone pursue an individual great work, in a society overrun with dysfunction, crime, and corruption. Crowley wrote the following in his essay, Duty, quote, "The essence of crime is that it restricts the freedom of the individual outraged. Thus murder restricts his right to live, robbery his right to enjoy the fruits of his labor, coining his right to the guarantee of the state that he shall barter in security, etc. It is then the common duty to prevent crime by segregating the criminal and by the threat of reprisals. Also, to teach the criminal that his acts, being analyzed, are contrary to his own true will. This may often be accomplished by taking from him the right which he has denied to others, as by outlawing the thief, so that he feels constant anxiety for the safety of his own possessions, removed from the ward of the state. The rule is quite simple. He who violated any right declares magically that it does not exist, therefore it no longer does so for him." End quote. Satan is not the enemy of a sanitary, civilized, and mutually enriching community. Quite the opposite. Satan is the god of civilization, as recognized by the theistic Satanist Diane Vera in some of her prayers and essays. For me, writes Vera, it is enough to say that Satan manifests in the human realm as a dark chthonic entity and as the muse of our civilization, a civilization which, like Satan himself, has many facets and thrives on change. A changing society is one thing, but a dystopian one, where the corpses and shit of junkies litter the streets, petty crime is rampant, illegal and excessive migration is encouraged to drive down wages and undermine social solidarity. The rule of law no longer applies to the rich, where public goods and services are shoddy, and common courtesy is non-existent, should not be any diabolist's vision of a glorious future. Where diabolists are in most agreement with the left is on issues of social freedom. Rather than relying on tradition and social caste to determine an individual's domestic fate, the Satanist lifts the lamp of Lilith to chart their own course. The freedoms to question, experiment, and, perhaps most importantly, make mistakes are the necessary conditions for self-determination and discovery. The left's historical commitment to freedom of speech, religion, and intellectual inquiry are surely the fruits of what was sown by Lucifer so many centuries ago. Notwithstanding the fact that elements of the radical left have strayed from, if not outright betrayed, these commitments, this is where diabolists and the left are most obviously at common cause. We see this in the writing of Crowley disciple and self-proclaimed Antichrist Jack Parsons in his essay, Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword. Quote, freedom is meaningless where its expression is controlled by powerful groups such as the press, the radio, the motion picture industry, churches, politicians, and capitalists. Freedom must be ensured. It can only be ensured by the allegiance to the principle that man has certain inalienable rights, among which are the rights to live his private life, insofar as it concerns only himself as he sees fit, to eat and drink, to dress, live, and travel, as, where, and he will, to express himself, to speak, write, print, experiment, and otherwise create as he desires, to work as he chooses, when he chooses, and where he chooses, at a reasonable and commensurate wage, to purchase his food, shelter, medical and social needs, and all other services and commodities necessary to his existence and self-expression at a reasonable and commensurate price, to have a decent environment and upbringing during his childhood until he reaches a responsible majority, to love as he desires, where, how, and with whom he chooses, in accordance only with the desires of himself and of his partner, to the positive opportunity to enjoy these rights as he sees fit, without obstruction on the one hand or compulsion on the other. Finally, in order to protect his person, his property, and his rights, he should have the right to kill an aggressor if necessary. This is the purpose of the right to keep and bear arms. End quote. Parson goes on to say, however, that these rights carry with them an equal responsibility. The liberal who supports these rights must grant them to others, even when they disagree with or dislike them. They must be vigilant to protect these rights, even to the point of death. They must never be loyal or obedient to any state, body, or organization that threatens or suppresses these rights. And finally, these rights, quote, must be interpreted and applied with understanding and sympathy, with humor and tolerance. Pretentiousness, sentimentality, or hysterics are not needed in their application or their defense. Insufferable demagogues of high principle are sufficiently numerous as it is. End quote. Speaking of pretentiousness and hysterics, while I personally think the left has made too much of a false god out of reducing harm, the maintenance of basic social safety nets and institutions to promote public health, education, and safety are completely in line with the satanic ethos. When the demonic law Lucifer and Babylon have placed within us is exercised properly, it enriches both our own lives and those of our neighbors. As Aleister Crowley wrote in 1922, quote, the task of every man is to express himself fully, but he must take into consideration his relationship with the community, since it is a part of his true will to be a member thereof, and any acts of his which conflicts with the true will of the community conflicts to that extent with his own true will." End quote. While many theistic Satanists and left-hand path practitioners find the imagery and aesthetics of vampirism alluring, make no mistake, we are not leeches. Other human beings are not cattle to suck dry or torture for our pleasure. We want to ennoble humanity, not enslave it. Even for those who feel they draw upon the energy of others, know that this does not and should not be a parasitic relationship. Even Temple of Set Magus Don Webb points out in his book, Energy Magic of the Vampire, exchanging energy is always better than taking energy. Or, as Parsons would put it, humanity either rises together as one or falls back into the jungle as one. It is generally not my prerogative to tell anyone how to vote or to what party they should belong to, as I recognize most of the choices we are presented with are a matter of choosing the lesser of two evils. There will never be a final, once-and-for-all solution to any of our social and political issues. New challenges will always arise, and the platform or party that is the remedy one day is just as likely to be a part of the problem down the road. While for a diabolist, the broad principles I've outlined aren't negotiable, it is nevertheless true that each of us must take our own conscience as our guide, as we have different individual and local priorities that will determine our political outlook. If a Satanist's reasoning and understanding of the facts is sound, and I have no reason to doubt they are acting in good faith, then I will happily extend them grace when we are at odds on a specific political course of action. My prayerful hope is that viewers will do the same for their brethren as well. Until next time, infernal blessings.